How many of you have been either working for or in or owned or been part of this industry for more than 10 years? All right, we got 3/4 of the room. So you can easily think back 10 or more years. Back in that time frame, if you think about what you were delivering to customers, the main objective of an account manager, salesperson, whatever, was to provide product and information. It's pretty straightforward. You have this to sell, and you're educating somebody on what the values of it are, what does it do, how does it benefit you? Because you couldn't really get that information elsewhere. Now, I'd say if we go just back 10 years, I mean, maybe they could pick things up on the internet or grab flyers or things like that, but it wasn't readily accessible. It wasn't like today where you pop up an internet page and you get everybody's opinion of what that product does, all the functions of it, and potentially the best practices as to how to utilize it. Now, again, stepping back, along those lines, after the information phase of things and providing that came along and started to get easier, at some point people started to interject things like service and took it a step further and said, let's package these things up. The whole era of solution selling and giving people more, hopefully creating more margin for you, selling more things, and providing that was the way that we did things. That provided the most value to the customer. But I'd say over the course of the last couple of years, depending on the industry, and it varies a little bit, there's been something more in there that's getting interjected into the sales process. And this doesn't matter, it really doesn't matter if you're selling whole goods, parts, service, providing some sort of a service, whatever it happens to be. There's more being required by the customers. They want something above and beyond just the product. You think about it like this: if you were to go out today and just provide the product itself and the information on it, and even the service for it, that's great, it appeases part of the need, but it's not really what they're driving for. And I know this based on not only the research that we've done, but a lot of the research that's being done at a much larger base across all kinds of different industries. There's becoming a really good understanding of what it is that customers want to get at. I like to refer to it as insight. And think of insight in these terms. It's something that today you can't have provided through a website or through information. It's much bigger than this. It's how you take the information that they have, your product and service, and you come up with some sort of an innovative solution, something that is insightful. It's the thing they don't know. Think about it from your guys' perspective. Anything that you've ever purchased, you don't want to know from the person you're talking to that's trying to sell it to you necessarily that this is the specific spec on it or what it does, because a lot of times you already know that. You're already aware of it. What you're looking for is the thing that you don't know. What are people complaining about it? What don't they like? What do they like? What are the favorite features? What are the things that you maybe can't get a hold of? What is the problem that it solves that you didn't know about? You didn't even know that it did. And that's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy to accomplish that, but we'll talk about how you get there. This is a very important point though, or why I bring this up. There was a time when the product and the information and the stuff that was provided made up more than 50%. I'd say at one time there was probably 75 or 80% of the sale was made based on the product you were selling. It has been diminishing year after year after year as products get closer together, and this becomes more important. We're now to a point where over 50% of the decision to buy something is about what happens in the sales process, specifically the insight that's provided, not the product or service. So even though you guys have these amazing products provided by John Deere and you guys provide unbelievable service and you've got parts like nobody else, it's mattering less and less in the process. It's about what's happening in those interactions, what's being discussed. That's where the real value is. That's what the customers are asking for. When we go out and I've spent the last year or so interviewing all kinds of your end customers, as well as doing a lot of ride-alongs with salespeople, CSRs, a lot of different departments, and visiting with the customers. And when we've done those interviews, they're all asking for the same thing, and it's this insight. How do I learn to be more efficient about my business? How are you going to help me utilize the product you have to sell? I know what it is, I know the features and functionality of it. Sometimes the people that are using it know it far better. Think about all the technicians and stuff that are out on the farms as well as the work sites and things like that today. A lot of times those people know the equipment better than the salespeople do. But how to apply it and utilize it and how it's going to make them more efficient is, again, really what's of value. Now, to complicate things, or not to continue to make this worse, but it is, they're getting smarter. And this falls along the lines with the fact that they know things better. Think about your customer 10 years ago to today. They're way better educated. They know the equipment better. On top of that, there's usually fewer of them and they're larger. Now the worst part about it, or the most difficult part I should say about it, is that they're more complex as well. Their operations have gotten bigger. They got more things going on. Technology has run rampant through there. They almost have to have a completely different skill set to run one of their operations today than they did. I shouldn't say almost, they do. It's just a fact. And then what makes it even more difficult is something I mentioned earlier, is the consensus cell. If you're not seeing this yet, get ready for it. It's coming. We've seen it in other industries for years, and once it starts, it grows quickly. And the problem or the struggle with it is that this individual before, maybe was the main decision maker. That person wrote the check, said yes or no. Maybe you knew this person because they were in the background or sort of approved things. But now there's somebody else involved that maybe doesn't even get into your discussion. This individual over here, they can't say yes or no, but they have the ability to completely stall the deal altogether. And what I mean by that is, well, let's take a specific example. All of you have been in on a deal at some point, maybe a big one, where you thought you had it, it was done, it was closed, it was 80, 90% of the way there. And then all of a sudden it just goes dead. Like complete radio silence. They don't respond to calls. They're not telling you anything. They're kind of pushing you off. What that usually is, what they're finding today in research is it's this individual that's just not saying yes. And you don't know them, you don't talk to them necessarily, you're not even aware of the influence that they have. And again, they can't say no and completely stop it, but they can make it just difficult enough for the other people not to want to move forward. And so they just stop with it. And we're seeing this more and more and more. So just to quickly summarize that, the old way of selling isn't going to fly going forward. They're demanding something different. They're becoming more complex. And in addition to that, each one of them, the insight that they're demanding, what they want, is different. You have to figure that out. Each individual that you have to sell to has a different demand.